Hello, everyone. This is the last subtopic of Part 1, Section E on internal controls. And this will be all about network controls and business continuity planning. Okay, so when we speak of network controls, we are actually referring to internet security. So once a company is connected to an outside network, usually the internet, a number of additional security issues must be properly addressed. The company must make sure that the policies that it puts in place allow the intended and authorized users to have access to the network as needed. However, we have to note that accessibility also creates vulnerability. So once we allow access to our systems, we are also becoming vulnerable to unauthorized access, such as those persons that want to destroy our system and to steal confidential information from us. So we have this so-called electronic eavesdropping. Okay, electronic eavesdropping can occur if computer users are able to observe transmissions intended for someone else. So it's like literal eavesdropping. Like, for example, when you are speaking with someone, let's say you are speaking to your friend, and then someone else is listening to your conversation, that is eavesdropping, right? We also have that in the electronic setup. So there are IT experts that know how to do this. They are able to observe the transmissions that supposedly is intended for someone else, and they can actually access the information that you are transmitting to that particular person. Therefore, organizations must ensure that information sent over a network is properly maintained, protected to maintain the confidentiality of company information. So, for example, if you are planning to transmit information about your trade secrets, say, for example, to your CEO, you have to make sure that no one else can access such information. No one can eavesdrop. So furthermore, the company must ensure that company files cannot be accessed or changed without authorization. It's very much easier for people to steal information nowadays compared before, because before the onset of gadgets and the internet, if you want to steal company information or confidential information from a company or from a person, you need to be physically there. You need to physically enter their company, their office. You have to physically go through papers that are inside the drawers or the any other storage area. You need to look for it personally. But now that most of the information are stored online and transmitted online, it's very much easier for people to steal information. So that is the importance of implementing network or security controls. At the minimum, the system should include user account management, firewall, antivirus protection, and encryption. So these are the minimum requirements in order for you to prevent internet fraud, prevent hackers from accessing your accounts. So you should have these, at least these four. First is your user account management. This is the process of assigning people accounts and passwords. In order for user account management to be as effective as possible, the company must keep the accounts and passwords up to date. Inactive accounts should be eliminated and active passwords should be changed frequently. So for example, you have several people accessing your system, and you need to provide user account details for each of the persons that you allow to access your system. And then we must also make sure that the passwords are changed periodically para ma-lessen ang risk na ma-hack ang atong accounts. And then that's for user account management. And then we should also have a firewall. A firewall serves as a barrier between the internal and the external networks and prevents unauthorized access to the internal network. So it's like a physical firewall. If you can picture out a firewall na in the buildings, diba? If you have two adjacent buildings, you have here a firewall. A firewall baga na siya nga wall. Just imagine, you can also look for it in the internet. You can, so that you can physically see what is a firewall in layman's term, but its purpose is the same when we apply this concept to an electronic setting. So it serves as a barrier. A properly configured firewall makes a computer's ports invisible to port scans. In addition to protecting a computer from incoming probes, a firewall can also prevent backdoor applications. So like backdoor applications, meaning those applications that are not supposedly intended or unauthorized, and that it can also prevent Trojan horses. Later, we will discuss what is a Trojan horse and other unwanted applications from sending data from the computer. Most firewalls will usually prepare a report of internet usage, including any abnormal or excessive usage, and attempts to gain an authorized entry to the network. So if there are any attempts, if someone else is attempting to gain access to your network, the firewall will flag it and report it to you. Someone else is trying to access. A firewall can be in the form of software directly installed on a computer, or it can be a piece of hardware installed between the computer and its connection to the internet. Another internet control or network security control is what we call your antivirus software. This is very much familiar to us because almost all of us are using antivirus softwares. So antivirus softwares must be regularly updated with the latest virus definitions and is the best defense against viruses, Trojan horses, and worms. Again, later we will get to know what is the difference between virus and worm and virus or Trojan horse. And antivirus software recognizes and incapacitates viruses before they can do damage. So it's like a vaccine, right? The vaccine is supposedly, I'm not guaranteeing it, but supposedly their function is to kill or incapacitate the virus before they can do damage to you. Users must keep their antivirus software up to date, however, because new viruses appear constantly. So if your antivirus software is outdated, it may not be able to incapacitate new viruses. Okay, so that's the importance of having an updated antivirus software. Programs that specifically defend against Trojan horses are also available. And then lastly, we have encryption. Encryption is the best protection against traffic interception resulting in data leaks. Because if your data that you're transmitting is not encrypted, then there is a chance that this could be copied or intercepted, and then someone else might have access the information that you are transmitting while it is still in the process of transmission. That is why there are several messaging apps that promote higher security because they are encrypted. For example, when we use Messenger, okay, getting Messenger that is linked to Facebook, if you send a message, okay, from your device to another device, there is a chance that someone else might intercept the transmission and can read whatever it is that you are sending the other person. But there are messaging apps that are encrypted. So for example, WhatsApp is encrypted from end to end. And then Viber also. So these mediums, these applications that you can use in transmitting information are much more secure as compared to Messenger. That's why in dealing with clients, I usually use WhatsApp instead of Messenger. Encryption converts data into a code, and then a key is required to convert the code back to data. Unauthorized people can receive the coded information, but without the proper key, they cannot read it. Thus, an attacker may be able to see where the traffic came from and where it went, but not the content itself. Okay, so let's look at viruses, Trojan horses, and worms. So these are the common threats to internet security. We have computer virus. Computer virus is a program that alters the way another computer operates. Viruses can damage programs, okay, delete files, or reformat the hard disk. Other viruses do not do damage but replicate themselves and present text, video, and audio messages. Although these other viruses may not cause damage directly, they create problems by taking up computer memory and causing erratic behavior or system crashes that can lead to data loss. So the most harmful viruses are those that delete you or corrupt your program. I'm sure we have experienced this, before. When we try to open a file in our computer, it says that the file is already corrupted. So that might be the work of a virus. Or less harmful viruses, they do not directly corrupt your file, but they bombard you with text, videos, and audio messages, which in turn will cause your computer to slow down and then eventually might cause problems in retrieving your data or your files inside your computer. So to be considered a virus must meet two criteria. First, it must execute itself. A virus often places its own code in the path of the execution of another program, and it must replicate itself. A virus can replace other executable files with a copy of the virus-infected file. I'm sure you also were able to experience this nga. Makita gani mo duha na kabuok file names, and then ang usa kay somehow suspicious looking. So that is the work of a virus. A virus can be received from an infected disk, a downloaded file, or an email attachment, among other places. So for example, when your computer is brand new, of course, it is expected that your unit or your computer has no virus yet. But when you try to download files from the internet, or when you insert an infected USB or download an email attachment that contains a virus, then your computer is at risk. So that's why it's very much helpful that you have an antivirus software. And then we have Trojan Horse. Trojan Horse is different from a virus. The Trojan Horse actually came from what happened in history, diba? They presented a Trojan horse. They presented a horse, supposedly nga, nangilad sila. It's not actually a horse. No? So the term Trojan horse in the current times has this connotation that it presents something other than what it actually is. So a very important distinction between Trojan horses and viruses is that Trojan horses do not replicate themselves, unlike a virus. The purpose of a Trojan horse is not to spread like a virus, but to have a particular target, a particular computer on which to run a program. So the strict definition of a Trojan horse is this: it is any program that does something besides what a person believes it will do. So if you have here a program, now you think, for example, it presents itself as an antivirus kumuhay. So antivirus, please download me and install me. So believing that it is really an antivirus, you downloaded it and you installed it in your computer when in fact it's not actually an antivirus, then that is a Trojan horse. A Trojan horse can appear to be something desirable, but in fact it contains malicious code that when triggered will cause loss or even theft of data. So for example, download ko na katong antivirus software, imo nag-i-install, and then ang purpose de ato niya is not to provide you with antivirus software, but rather to capture data from your computer and then email it to someone else. Okay, so that is an example of a Trojan horse. A typical example of a Trojan horse is a program hidden inside of a humorous animation that opens a backdoor into the system. So taratanaw kuno hay kadira og katawanan nga video, but pag play din mo naari siya Trojan horse, and then naka-enter siya sa imong system. Another example of a Trojan horse is a commercial software that collects data on the person running the program and it sends it back to the originating company without warning the target. So this is very, very much crucial, especially if you are into online banking. And then, for example, na ay Trojan horse na naanahin noon sa imuhang computer, and then the Trojan horse will capture your account name and your login details about mobile banking, and that would expose you to theft of your cash deposits in your bank. A computer user can get a Trojan horse only by inviting it into his or her computer. Two examples are by opening an email attachment or downloading and running a file from the internet. So it's like somehow the source is the same with virus, because you can get a virus from a downloaded file and email attachment too, right? You can also get a Trojan horse using those means. Next is a worm. A worm is a program that replicates itself from system to system without the use of any host file. The difference between a worm and a virus is that the worm does not require the use of an infected host file, while the virus does require the spreading of an infected host file. So, in essence, worms can stand alone. Worms generally exist inside of other files, often Word or Excel documents. However, worms use the host file differently from viruses. Usually, the worm releases a document that has the worm macro inside the document. The entire document spreads from computer to computer, so the entire document is, in essence, the worm. Okay, we also have this virus hoax. This is not a common one, but a virus hoax is an email telling the recipient that the file on his or her computer is a virus when the file is not a virus. It's like a scam, you know? Such an email will tell recipients to look on their systems for a file with a specific name, and if they see it, to delete it because the file contains a virus that is unrecognizable by the antivirus programs. Everyone with a targeted operating system will find that file because it is a system file that is needed for the computer to operate correctly. So it will say, please delete this system.docs file. So that's not because it's a virus now, but in fact it's not. But when you delete it, it will cause your computer to behave incorrectly now. Someone who believes the virus hoax email and deletes the file will find that the computer malfunctions afterward because you deleted that file. Okay, here are examples of cybercrime. So because most of us are using the internet, there is a prevalent cybercrime acts happening all throughout. Cyber attacks can be perpetrated by criminals, international adversaries, and terrorists as well. So here are some specific computer crimes. Copyright infringement, such as the illegal copying of a copyrighted material, whether intellectual property, such as computer programs or textbook, or entertainment property, such as music and movies. So once they have access to your computer, they might copy your files that are covered with intellectual property. So for example, if you are an artist and then you have an original song composition and then wala pa nimo siya gi-publish, then someone else has gained access to your computer and then will copy your original song composition. That is an example of a copyright infringement. And then we also have DOS, or denial of service attacks, in which a website is accessed repeatedly so that other legitimate users cannot connect to it. So if you want to access, for example, in my case, in my bookkeeping clients, I am using an online accounting software. So DOS happens when someone else is always trying to access the same website that I'm trying to access. to the point that I myself cannot access it anymore. Then we have intrusions and theft of personal information. Phishing. This is a high-tech scam that uses spam email to deceive customers into disclosing their credit card numbers, bank account information. This is also very much prevalent. Like, for example, you will receive an email na your bank account now is at high risk, and then to secure your account, please provide your credit card number and then your password, or please send me the OTP that is being sent to your registered mobile number. So that is an example of phishing. And then installation of malware. Malware is actually a shortcut for malicious software. So installation of malware on a computer without the user's knowledge. So these are examples of cyber crimes. And we can prevent these criminals from committing these crimes if we are to make use of these internet security or network security controls. Okay. Then the very last topic is business continuity planning. So this involves defining the risks facing a company in the event of a disaster, assessing those risks, creating procedures to mitigate those risks, regularly testing those procedures to ensure that they work as expected, and periodically reviewing the procedures to make sure that they are up to date. So for example, you will have to think nga, what if ang ato ang office kay masunog or mag-flood sa ato ang area, or sa ba makaguba sa any other circumstance that could destroy our office and eventually could destroy our computer data. So we should have this business continuity planning. So in the context of an information technology system, it is essential that the company have plans for the backup of data and the recovery of data, especially in the context of disaster recovery. So in essence, we can refer to business continuity planning as our disaster recovery plan. Okay, so several different processes and backup plans function as part of the backup and recovery plan. So for example, program files should be backed up regularly. Copies of all transactions are stored as a transaction log para maka-point out ta kung asa nga part asa nga mga transactions ang wala na capture o asa nga part ang na-capture na, para magsugod lang ato ang recovery of data sa katong portion nga wala pa siya na capture sa system. Backups should be stored at a secure remote location. Kaya kung ang imuhang backup naara po the same sa office nimo, so kung kung bahaon inyong office, mabaha sa inyong backup. Diba? So you should store your backups at another or separate place, remote location. Backup data can be transmitted electronically to the backup side through a process called electronic vaulting or backing up to the cloud. So during these times, we are not required to physically move our data from this office or from this location to another location. We can actually transmit data through the cloud, not physically. Okay. Backing up to the cloud carries with it its own control considerations. So of course, since if you back up using the cloud, you have to use an internet. And then by using the internet, you are also exposing yourself to several risks. So you should consider these before you do backing up to the cloud. So data security. A cloud backup provider should be certified compliant with international security standards. Data privacy. Encryption alone is no guarantee of privacy. If encryption keys are held with data in the cloud provider may be required to turn over data if subpoenaed. So for maximum privacy, the encryption key can be further encrypted, called digital envelope encryption. Dependability of the remote location. I mentioned a while ago that your backups should be stored at a secure remote location. So also, dapat yung remote location must be dependable. Legal data requirements of the country where the data is resident. Multinational organizations with employees all over the world need to understand the data regulations in each country in which they are located. So actually, we have data privacy laws, and then the data privacy laws also differs from one country to another. So if you are a multinational company, you have to consider several data privacy laws as well. And then grandparent-child processing. This is used because of the risk of losing data before, during, or after processing work. Data files from previous periods are retained, and if a file is damaged during updating, the previous data files can be used to reconstruct a new current file. So, mag-save ka. For example, naamoy na-save gahapon, and then karon, nagkabuang inyong system. So in order for you to recover data, in your tungkuon ang data gahapon, and then you just enter the new transactions for this day. Computers should be on UPS or uninterruptible power supplies to provide some protection in the event of power failure. Then, fault-tolerant systems are systems designed to tolerate faults or errors. They often utilize redundancy in hardware design so that if one system fails, another one will take over. But these things are costly, no? So we could do away with this if we are still a small organization. But if you are a large organization, large business, you are encouraged to install or implement these controls and these backup processes. So, disaster recovery. Not many firms could survive for long without computing facilities, especially if your business is more dependent with online systems. No, so if your system crashes down, you might lose millions. Therefore, an organization should have a formal disaster recovery plan to fall back on in the event of a hurricane, fire, earthquake, flood, or criminal or terrorist attack. So a disaster recovery plan specifies which employees will participate in disaster recovery and what their responsibilities will be. One person should be in charge of disaster recovery and another should be second in command. And the plan should also specify what hardware, software, and facilities will be used and what the priority of applications are. So, asa man atong mas unahon o recover as compared to the other applications. We can also arrange for alternative facilities as a disaster recovery site and offsite storage of the company's databases. So we have these 4 examples. You need to remember this. This is very much important. We have disaster recovery sites. We have the hot site, a cold site, a warm site, and a mobile site. Okay. A hot site or a mirror data center is a backup facility that has a computer system similar to the one used regularly. So more siyang replica. Nakay replica. The hot site must be fully operational and immediately available with all necessary telecommunications hookups for online processing. So such that if your main location is being compromised, you can immediately transfer to the hot site and then continue your operations there. Cold site, on the other hand, is a facility where space, electronic power and heating, and air conditioning are available and processing equipment can be installed, though the equipment and the necessary telecommunications are not immediately available. So, the hot site is like a mirror data center. It's like a replica. So, you can expect that dako imuhang magastuan ni because the hot site always runs not together with the main site, but the cold site is much more cost efficient. You can cut out costs if you just have a cold site because the cold site is like cold, dead. it's like a space there, but it's not yet immediately available in case your main site fails. So inibalhin mo dito sa cold site, you still have to perform some preparations before it can run again. A warm site is in between a host site and a hot sites are rather in between a hot site and a cold site. It has the computer equipment and necessary data and communication links installed just as a hot site does. However, it does not have live data. If use of the warm site is required because of a disaster, current data will need to be restored to it. So although it already has all the equipment, na mga computer, tanan-tanan, but the data coming from your main site is not always automatically captured in the warm site. So if ganang kagdali-dali yun, dapat you should maintain a hot site. Then we have a mobile site. A mobile site is a disaster recovery site on wheels. It can be a hot site, a warm site, or a cold site. It is usually housed in a trailer and contains the necessary electric power, heat, and air conditioning. A mobile site may be company-owned or it may be available to the company on a contracted basis. So it's either yours or you are hiring another company to keep you a mobile site. Several companies operate mobile recovery centers on a contract basis. In the event of a disaster that destroys operations facilities, they arrive within hours in a tractor, trailer, or van that is fully equipped with their client's platform requirements, 50 to 100 workstations, and staffed with technical personnel to assist in recovery. So this is also costly. Personnel should be trained in emergency procedures, and retraining should be done regularly to keep their knowledge fresh. The disaster recovery plan should be tested periodically by simulating a disaster in order to reveal any weakness in the plan. So murag naamoy test ba nga. Let's say magbaha. So mag-simulate jud mo unsay mahitabo if magbaha para makita ninyo which aspects sa imong disaster recovery plan needs refining or kailangan siya i-work on. This task should be conducted using typical volumes and processing times should be recorded. Mura ba og same concept with kanang buhaton nato sa school nga nay murag fire drill or earthquake drill, so we would know unsay kasagaran nga buhaton ug unsa nga part sa process ang kailangan siya o improvement. The disaster recovery plan should be reviewed regularly and revised when necessary because organizational and operational changes made that have not been incorporated into the recovery plan could make the recovery plan unusable. Okay, so this ends our study of Part 1, Section E, Internal Controls. This Part 1, Section E, Internal Controls, is part of the CMA syllabus. So I hope you learned something from our discussions and good luck with your CMA reviews.